In my examination of the reception of the building by critics, Henry Russell Hitchcock, in his book, I know he was critical in Hound and Horn, but 19th and 20th centuries, he said he really did think the Woolworth Building was a beautiful skyscraper. The problem with it is that if I give it too much attention, modern architecture will be a story without a plot, which I thought was really interesting. And then Mumford praised it in his Sticks and Stones, saying that I don't like the skyscraper. You know, we can imagine Mumford being critical of the skyscraper as a type, but if we must have the skyscraper, look at the Woolworth Building. So even modernist critics had very conflicting, and it was difficult because they loved the building, but it didn't fit into their standard of criticism as it developed in the 20s and 30s. And this just to me points to the complexity of the reception around the Woolworth Building. And I think Mary Woods showed very clearly how a number of photographers and filmmakers and artists, watercolors, Marin, reacted to profoundly different ways. And I thought Bernice Abbott's interpretation of this building as being very, this powerful vertical slice into the sky, and then we see an appreciation of its stability after September 11th. And so these are all very different lenses that are being brought to this building, and by people who are remarkable seers. And then finally, with Dietrich Neumann's talk, which I found just spellbinding, I just think it's very, very interesting. Very interesting to see Gilbert's relationship with Mussolini, and that's just one aspect of this very interesting talk. I think it points to Gilbert's later career and Gilbert's really difficult relationship with modernism, and the fascist salute, I think, was, he was feeling connected with Rome and Roman antiquity and everything that it stood for. A few years later, he would design the Supreme Court in the United States in Washington, D.C., one of his most, one could say, arguably conservative and classical designs, as if to establish the importance of the classical tradition. He did not at all appreciate the Armory show, and through the 20s and 30s was increasingly irritated by the avant-garde, which he associated with leftist politics. It's a very complex period in Gilbert's career, and we know he was gone by 1934, but his later career is very complex politically in these ways. He becomes increasingly conservative with his own architectural work. But nonetheless, I think it points to Gilbert's own complexity. Gilbert had the, what can I say, I didn't know that he influenced Mussolini in the way that he did in opening up Rome with the avenues and so on. One could argue, and not building that skyscraper. It's a very positive thing. So I've talked enough, and I know many of you have questions, so perhaps if our presenters could come up to the front, because these are going to be interesting questions, I'm sure.